This video covers the resentencing hearing of Marty Mitchell, who is charged with operating while intoxicated, OWI, and resisting police officers after winning an appeal on his original sentence. During the hearing, the prosecution successfully argued for a higher guideline range based on the defendant's use of force, which increased the advisory sentencing range. The defense presented Mr. Mitchell as someone who had made progress while incarcerated, noting his completion of rehabilitation programs and medical treatment, and requested a sentence within the guidelines.
And we're here for a resentencing on remand from the Michigan Court of Appeals in the case of People versus Marty Mitchell. It's filed 22-6430. Counsel, you want to state your appearances for the record, beginning with People?
Melissa Goodrich, Wayne County Prosecutor.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Melissa Krauskopf on behalf of Mr. Mitchell. He's present here, seated to my right.
Okay, the advisory guidelines have been scored at 12 to 24 months. Ms. Krauskopf, any scoring challenges from the defense?
No, Your Honor. I believe 12 to 24 months is accurate.
So People did file an objection to OV-19 being scored at 10 points, arguing that it should be at 15 points. Ms. Goodrich, are you continuing that objection today?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, due to the amount of force that the defendant used that day, he had driven off beyond the officer's commands, and then so they had to pull him over again, and then he refused to get out of the vehicle, rolled down the windows. They had to break through a window and then pull him away from the steering wheel. He began kicking the officers with his legs. Therefore, we believe that OV-19 is properly scored at 15 rather than 10 points.
That variable, OV-19, was scored at 10 points on the original sentence in this case. When asked if there were any additions, deletions, or corrections to the guidelines of the original sentencing, the People said no, so there was no objection made at the original sentence. Following the appeal in this case, the People did file a confession of error. The COA rejected it because we didn't quite agree on the remedy, although we agreed that there was an error. I appreciate that a resentencing opens things back up, but I will, I guess, just put on the record that I don't love the idea of that variable being scored now when the People had an opportunity to correct it previously. It feels a little punitive.
A remand for resentencing does reopen all issues for resentencing, and I've seen sometimes where then the defense has objections that they didn't have previously. As long as, I guess, if it had been presented and argued in the Court of Appeals and there was an adjudication on the issue, it of course would be law of the case, and we wouldn't be able to reopen it, even if they're, like, if they hold that something was improperly scored and they send it back for resentencing, we can't just, that scoring is locked in by the Court of Appeals decision. Here, the Court of Appeals remand was that I failed to, and upon review of the sentencing transcript, they're absolutely right. I failed to articulate any reasons at all for the extent of the departure. So a remand was certainly appropriate. And here the evidence does show that Mr. Mitchell did use force and the threat of force in his interference with the officers' obligations that day, including actually forcibly kicking them. So based upon that, I would score OV-19 at 15 points, from 12 to 24 to 14 to 29. Any objection to my arithmetic or range calculations from the defense on that?
No, Your Honor. I'll just, for Mr. Mitchell's benefit, I'll just note my objection to the court scoring OV-19, but I think the court has done the math correctly based on the way the court's going to score it.
Okay, thank you. That issue is preserved. Ms. Krauskopf, anything you want to say on behalf of your client?
Your Honor, the court can take post-conviction behavior into account that is People versus Fields. And so I will note that at least from the update that we have here, he's been doing well in prison. You know, one minor misconduct for out of place is really certainly very far from the worst thing that I have seen. The report reflects that he's quiet, he's not causing anybody any problems, he's completed a program. He also informs me that he's being treated for glaucoma and severe migraines while at the prison. He was working in the kitchen, but has had to stop due to the health issues that he has been suffering. He also suffers from severe progressive degenerative disc disease, so he does have a host of health problems, but otherwise it appears that since he has been sentenced, that he has been keeping his nose clean, so to speak, in prison and doing the best he can to avail himself of programming there. I would just ask that the court consider all of that and sentence him within the appropriately scored guidelines.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mitchell, it is not required that you would make a statement here today, and if you elect not to, I don't hold that against you in any way. You also are allowed to make any statement you wish to me today. Is there anything you wish to say, sir?
Respectfully, and I understand that there was a narrative, but there's also a police report. I got out of the vehicle on my own. There was no broken windows. Nobody broke my windows. I never kicked any officers in my truck. I got out, the dog grabbed a hold of my ankle, and it was noted in the medical report that there was 4 puncture marks on my ankle. I fell back. I grabbed a hold of the steering wheel to keep from falling, and the next thing I knew, 2 police officers had a hold of my legs. And I says, please hold on, stop. You're gonna hurt me. And they stopped. And they helped me out they pulled me out of the truck. And I let go of the steering wheel and they pulled me out of the truck, and there was no fighting or nothing. I was not kicking these guys. I just fell back and I grabbed a hold of the steering wheel to keep from getting hurt. Nobody ever broke my windows. When they towed my truck, that the tow truck driver would know. There was no glass cleanup or anything like that, sir. And they walked away, and the only reason I called them officers to the truck, I just asked for their supervisor. I drove my truck 120 feet out of an intersection into a parking spot, which the police officer wrote in the statement. It said that Mr. Mitchell got aggravated because he didn't have insurance, and he asked if he could drive his truck to where he could have some light. I have glaucoma, I can't see, I'm 65% blind in this eye. So I didn't have any light, and my phone was underneath my brake pedal. So just trying to say that I was trying to be respectful. I never kicked anybody, and they never had to break any of my windows. That's obscene to me. I would never do that to officers. I would always, my whole life, try to be as respectful as possible I could ever be. And when they arrested me, I put up no fuss. When I got put on PR bond, you put me on PR bond, I had to report every day to the drug court and make myself available. Now, even though I was on probation already with Isabella, I made myself available to the court every day. And at one point I was homeless, and the VA ended up helping me get a place to live just before I got put into prison, okay? But I called the court every day and made myself available. No matter what, I would have went and got drug tested and anything else I needed to do. And my biggest thing was transportation, because my truck got repossessed after this incident. Of course, all that. So, but I turned myself in. When I come back here to court, you said I had a problem with Isabella, I didn't report, and that was my violation, is not reporting. There wasn't any criminal activity or anything like that. No drugs, no alcohol or anything like that. It's just, it was a non-reporting issue, and it was because of transportation. I don't have any family, anything per se that was helping me. But I was able to get a ride up here, and I turned myself into you and being respectful to the court, and especially to you and everybody, because I didn't want to have any more extenuated problems than I'd already had in my life. I got divorced about 10 years ago, and my life went downhill ever since. And I've tried to keep my crap together, but it's been hard. I am a veteran of the Army. I do have some PTSD, and I've had some emotional and mental issues. And I've done my darndest to try to take care of things the best that I can, but I realize that I need help. And through the process of being in prison, I've gone through a really good program that's helped me that way. And I've got counseling for the PTSD. I've got counseling for being able to deal with others. And that's been my biggest problem, is expressing myself properly. And that's like before, when I was here in court, I tried to say something to you and I couldn't. I just started crying. Well, that's part of working on me. And that's what I've really been able to do since I've been here, or since this last year and a half. Now, when I was on bond, my 15-year-old daughter, I got two minor daughters, tried to kill herself. She lives in Fort Wayne, Indiana. My 13 and my 15-year-old daughters want to come live with their father because they've been being abused and they can't seem to get away from him. And they need their father. And I've been trying really hard to keep myself together and take care of my necessary problems. Anything that I've had to take care of, I've been trying to take care of it as best I can. And I couldn't take custody of them while I was out on bond because I knew I had to come here and take care of this with this court. And I wasn't going to put my daughters through that more instability. So since I got put in prison, I've had no contact with them. My mother has, but they need their father. And I understand that I need to pay a debt to the state of Michigan for my actions. And that's why I'm trying to reiterate to you, I wasn't kicking anybody. They didn't bust my windows. And I'm sorry for having to drive my truck out of a busy intersection. And I went up 200 feet and parked it. I didn't run off. I went right where I told the young lady I was going to take my pickup truck to.
When speaking on his own behalf, Mr. Mitchell denied key parts of the police report, explaining that his behavior was affected by vision problems and that he was attempting to remain cooperative. He also spoke emotionally about his difficult past, including homelessness and PTSD, and expressed a strong desire to rebuild his life and care for his daughters. The prosecution opposed leniency, pointing to Mr. Mitchell's lengthy criminal record and repeated violations while under supervision, arguing that he continued to pose a risk to the community. After reviewing the case history and Mr. Mitchell's repeated failures to comply with court orders, the judge concluded that Mr. Mitchell had not accepted responsibility for his actions. The court ultimately sentenced him to 3 to 5 years in prison, departing from the advisory guidelines due to his ongoing non-compliance and lack of remorse.